This is something I wanted to create for a long time, but never did it. Finally, I decided to sit down and create a working sample sequencer using Spline. And it was quite a challenge, quite a head scratcher, because Spline is not designed for creating music instruments. And you may look at this model and think it's not that complicated, it's quite simple. And I have to agree, when it comes to design, the visual part is quite simple, but what underneath is what counts. The mechanics are quite complex, and it took a while to create a working model. In this video, I'm going to show how it was created, how each part was created, how it works, the mechanics, what materials I've used, how I added sound, how samples were constructed using Music Maker. So you will learn everything, the limitations of Spline, performance issues, and so on. But before we dive in, let me tell you 3 things. First, if you press a button, let's say W, and if it doesn't work, make sure the caps lock is off. It should be a lowercase letter. Second, it doesn't have auto beat match. It is Spline. It's not designed for creating music instruments, meaning you have to do it. And it's quite fun because you feel like actually doing something. Okay, let me show you. So if I click letter W and add the beat, it's out of sync, right? It's out of sync. Okay, let's click W and S at the same time. And now it's synced. So if you're playing multiple samples at the same time, you have to make the syncing. You have to listen when to click, when to add the sound to make it work. Third, I added strobe light. If you click number 0, you'll see the slide moving back and forth, back and forth. And I can reset here and click 0 again, and it's moving back and forth. I can zoom in. This is how it works. Let's take a look of how it was created. Here on the left side, I have main button. I'm going to zoom out and click here. You see, there's a button. I'm going to hide now. I have keys, bass, backdrop, and of course, directional light here at the bottom called directional light. Okay, let's zoom in. Let's start from the bass. I'm going to click on the bass and let's check the measurements. It's 760 here on the right side, 760, 50, and 520. I experimented with the size a little bit, and this is what I came up with. To create a bass is quite simple, just like the button. All you have to do is click the cube and draw this bass, add the measurements here on the right side, and that's about it. Now, when it comes to materials, if you click here on the right side, you'll see that I have lightning, image, and matte cap here at the bottom. For creating a Spline logo, I've used a different combination, meaning I just added an image on an ellipse. I'm going to show how I did that. I'm going to click on an ellipse, hold shift, extrude, click plus sign, add image, and I located Spline logo and add it just like that. So this is how base was created. I just wanted to keep it simple. Of course, I could have added multiple materials and make it even more beautiful, but I didn't want to do that because I'm worried about performance, and if you add a lot of materials, it could hinder the performance if you want to play it online. And I'm going to talk about performance and how it works here on Spline later in this video. Alright, let's check how backdrop was created. Here I have a backdrop and I'm going to zoom out, and it's even easier. All you have to do is click plus sign, locate the backdrop here, and add like this. And this is how you add a backdrop. Okay, let's increase the size. This is how I added a backdrop. Let's check the materials. And here on the right side, I have lightning and I have depth. If I click on depth, you can see the colors I've used. Here at the top, I have two states, this and this. And I have an event here. It's called key down, and if I click on it, it was set to 0, number 0. Finally, the hardest part, keys. Here at the top, I have main button. Okay, let's zoom out and unhide. Here I have a main button. It's a component. And here below, I have a group called keys. Okay, let's hide here on the base. And if I click this drop down, I see row number 1, row 2, 3, and 4. And those are instances, how it was created. I clicked on this cube, created a cube. And if you want to see the measurements, you can go back to original button called main button, just under main button component. And you can see the measurements here. It's 150 and 100. Okay, I can type 150 and 100. And I used a cloner here on the right side. I added clones horizontally and vertically. And once you have the number and you are happy, all you have to do, okay, let's change the color. All you have to do is click convert to instances. And if you check left side, now cube is the main component and cube clones are the instances inside. So this is how I created the keyboard. Cloner tool is great. It's crucial to know how it works. I'm not going to dive into that because creating a keyboard is quite a simple task. All you have to do is create a few clones and that's about it. Okay, I'm going to delete and zoom in. Let's take a look at the original. Let's unhide. Okay, I have a button and it has two states. Okay, let's zoom out and I clicked letter S while this item was selected, to center my camera and zoom in. I have two states, look, and it is changing the position, and position is set to 10 here on Y axis, and here it is set to 20. So it's changing the position and changing the color here. If I click on this depth, I see the color, and if I click here, I see a different color, right? So it's changing the color. Let's take a look at the key name. I created a label and added on top. To create a label, you have to use text tool and type text, and here you have a text, and you can position in any way you want. And this text was positioned, you can check all the details here on the right side. So it was rotated minus 90 degrees, and position was set to 70. And it has also two states because I want to move it down with the main button. And base state was set to 70 and state 60. Okay, so this is how the main component was created. And what is component? It's the main button. And instances are connected to the component and use the same structure. Let's go back to the keys. I'm going to click letter S to switch my camera to keys. And here I have 4 rows. Row 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if I click on row 1, I have button number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and so on. So I'm going to show how row 1 is constructed, and row 2 and 3 and 4 uses the same structure, same everything. Let's take a look at button number 1. It's an instance, like I said before, and it has key name and main button. And if I click on main button and choose state, it changes the color. And if I zoom in, okay, let's zoom in. And if I select the label, which is set to 1, change the state from base state to state, I can see that it's in lighter color here, right? It's white, and base state is gray. And this is how it works. And once you have an instance here, for example, I can change this label to any label I want. I can type, 1A and have it like this, but it doesn't affect the main component. And if I don't like the change, I can delete or go back. I can click here on the right side and reset objects overrides, events or geometry, or reset all overrides, and it goes back to normal, meaning it checks what the main component is telling to this instance and resets. But I don't have to do that. I can undo, Control or Command plus Z. Okay, let's undo, and it's all set. So like you see, it has two states and it has key down, just like the component. But if you click on key down, you see that the number was set to 1, meaning if I click number 1, the state changes to this state. And same here, key down set to 1. And if you press key 1, you have a sound and transition, but I'm going to talk about sound later because it's on top of the row number 1 group. And here under transition, the transition happens. And of course it was set to toggle, meaning that if you click one time, it goes down, click once again, it goes up. And you can check the settings yourself if you want. Same goes for button number 2. See, I can hide or unhide. And here below I have two states. If I click on key down, it is set to 2. And here it was set to 2, meaning if I press 2, the button called number 2 goes down and up, down and up. Oh, and one more thing, if you want to hide all the key names, you can go to the main component and click here and hide. And the buttons are going to work, but let's keep it that way because I'm showing how it works and how it was constructed. Now I'm going to show how I added sound on each button. We don't have to look at the instances here inside on the left side. Now we have to go and check each group called row number 1, 2, 3, and 4, but we are going to check just row number 1. Okay, and if I select row number 1 and go to events, here on the right side, I see key down, key down, key down, key down, and so on. Let's check the first one. And here's an event called key down, and again, key number 1, and here I added the sound. It is set to play, stop, and I added MP3 file, volume is set to 10, and loop is infinite. If I click here, it is set to 2. I'm talking about button number 2. Key down was set to 2, and I added a sound. And let's check the last one. If you press key 6, you'll get this sound. And same goes for all the rows here on the left side. Now you know how it was created. Let's talk about performance. If you are designing anything with Spline, you have to know upfront for what purpose are you creating it for. For example, are you going to use this model for still images only? Or are you going to create a video like for a show reel? Or you want to use it on a live website, meaning online, so that other users could interact and play with it. And it is very important to know upfront because you don't want to use a lot of materials here on the right side on your model if you are going to use it online, because people will experience problems interacting with it. But if you are going to create still images or even a video, it's totally fine. Although if you're going to record a video of how it moves, rotates or something, I would say also try to limit your creativity and use less materials. I always say use as little as possible, and it doesn't matter if it is a Spline or Figma or Photoshop, use as little as possible. Don't overcomplicate. Let's check the performance option that Spline is offering, and you'll see what I mean. You have to click on export here, and here under performance, run a test. And if I run a test, I can see that export size is too big. It's 42.7 megabytes, right? And why is that? Because I added a lot of samples, MP3 samples, because I want to play it. And there is no way around that. There's no way to cut it. If you want to have a decent quality and long samples, I'm going to show how I created samples later on in this video, but this is how it works. So you don't have to worry about that, because if you're playing it online, it will take a little bit more time to load it up, but you'll not have problems once it is loaded. Here, loading time score is 15. This is because the export size is too big. But down below, if you check metrics, objects is okay, clones 0, because I created instances and I use components and instances, boolean 0, polygons only 3,241, right? Down below, materials only 5, 0, 0, lights 1, textures 2. So it is really, really clean here, except for the big size, which is not a big deal, because all you have to do is just sit and wait till it loads. But once it's loaded, it works. And if you make a change and you want to share it online, you have to remember to click Update Public URL, because if you don't click on this button, you'll see an old version if you use this link here at the top. And there's a different way of playing it, right? You can use this public link and it's going to be a little bit slower, or you can just import this Spline file and click this button, play, and it works a little bit better because you're playing directly from Spline and you're not using public URL. Preparing samples was difficult and it took a while, and I'm going to show the process. I'm going to show what I did and you'll see why. I took the samples from Cymatics. It's free. You can check their library. They have lots of free sample packs, and I used Magix Music Maker to prepare each sample. And I used the free trial version, and if you want to try it, you can use free trial version. If you want to get lots of samples, you can buy it, because Music Maker has huge library. And links are in the description. I'm just showing what I used. This video is not sponsored, no one paid me. Not Cymatics, not Magix Music Maker, or anyone. Let's go back to the keys. Here on the left side I have a group called keys and row 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's select row 1 and key down second from the top. The key is set to 2, and I'm going to change this file to a different sample and I'll show you the difference. New sample is added. It's called test drum short, meaning it's a regular sample, because if you download Cymatics sample pack, you'll see that samples are usually short. It's 8 seconds, 15 seconds, it's one small sample, and if you want to play it, you have to add on a software, and it's going to repeat and repeat and repeat. And here the settings are play, stop, volume 10, and loop is set to infinite. And let's click play, and let's play the sample. You'll hear a small interruption. This small interruption is very important, meaning you can't use regular samples. And if you check media players, for example, like a free player called VLC media player or any other media player, and if you set it on repeat and you use the same sample, it does the same thing, meaning it makes small interruption before going to the start. And if you're using multiple samples, it becomes unplayable, because sample is repeating every, let's say, 8 or 15 seconds, and those small interruptions add up, and those are interruptions, so it's not playable. What I did, instead of using one small sample, I used a Magix Music Maker, and I expanded this sample to 90 seconds, meaning 1 minute and 30 seconds. So each sample on each button is set to 90 seconds or 1 minute and 30 seconds. Second issue, and quite a big one, sample size. Let's go back to row number 1. Let's select key down here, and let's remove this file. Okay, so I can add MP3 or WAV file, but it's limited to 2 megabytes. And it's really small. If you've downloaded Cymatics sample pack, you'll see that each sample is much heavier than that, meaning that you have to compress it on your own. And I used Magix Music Maker to export in MP3 format. And I've tried different ways. I tried different compression rates, and I came up with MP3 format 160 compression rate. But if you go lower than that, it becomes washed out. 160 is enough. And I used MP3 because it's smaller compared to WAV. WAV is usually called a raw audio format, and it's great that they are providing highest quality, I mean Cymatics. But if you want to use it on Spline, you have to compress it, and you have this limitation of 2 megabytes, which is reasonable because they wanted to preserve their servers, of course, and performance issues may arise, fine. But for this task, this challenge, I had to experiment, and this is what I came up with. However, the bottom row, called row number 4, is a little bit different. I added special effects on the last row, and if you click, let's say on the first one, key down, you'll see it has Razor 1 MP3, and the loop is set to none. And the structure is a little bit different because I don't want special effects to repeat again and again. I want special effects to be played one time, and that's it. So if you click letter Z, it plays one time, but the sample in itself, it still is set to 90 seconds or 1 minute and 30 seconds. So it plays small sample, this special effect, and after that it plays nothing, but the sample is still playing, but it has no audio content, meaning it's empty. So it plays empty sound for almost 80 seconds or something like that. Loop is set to none because I don't want to repeat it. This is how I did that. I'm going to show you Magix Music Maker screens that I took because I don't have access to the program anymore. I used free trial, it's over, but I took the screens and I'm going to explain how I prepared each sample. Remember that same principles apply no matter the program you're going to use. Here we have beats per minute, but it doesn't work sometimes, so pay attention, it happens. Here on the right side, I have my samples. I opened synth, loops, breakdown loops, and here I have all the samples. I've used 128 beats per minute. So every sample that I added on my Spline model is set to 128. And if you have a sample, let's say, which is 150 beats per minute, you have to lower it to 128 if you want to use it, because it's not going to match. Next, okay, let's move here. If you want to prepare a sample for this model, you have to drag and drop one sample right here. And you're going to see sample of this size. It's going to be 8 or 10 seconds, it doesn't matter. If you look at beats per minute, it shows 120, but we know it's 128, so sometimes it doesn't work. To make it bigger like this, you have to click here on this small piece at the end and click with your mouse and drag. But of course it happens here. I already did that. So you click here and drag up to here and you have this huge sample, which is set to 90 seconds or 1 minute and 30 seconds. And here this top bar is your working area. Usually it's much smaller, and you do the same thing. You click here on this piece and you drag to the position you want. So you want to position here next to your sample. It should be perfectly aligned. Next, once you are ready to export, you click on File, Export, and here are my settings. It is set to only export the range, normalize, and bitrate is set to 160. And of course, I'm exporting in MP3 format, not WAV. Next. Here I'm exporting special effects, and like I told before, it's a little bit different. I'm keeping the active area, working area, at the same size, right? Here I'm not changing it, but I'm adding sample here. And now look, beats per minute is showing 128 because I had a sample which was set to 128. And the special effect is set to 124, but for special effects it's not that important. Since I had a sample before which was set to 128, it has the setting, and if you add this, it automatically changes to 128. So now it's set to 128 because the previous sample was set to 128. So now I leave this empty space here and I export as it is, meaning that it's going to play this special effect on row number 4, let's say on button called Z, and for a minute and a half it's going to be silent until I click on letter Z and switch it off. Next, here on this screen I'm showing how I added a drum loop which is set to 150 beats per minute here, and look, Magix Music Maker is setting this scene to 150 automatically, and like I said, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And now if you add additional sample here below, and even if it is set to 128, it is automatically going to change to 150 because this scene is set to 150, and this is how it works, but it doesn't work all the time. Let's move on. And here I have a sample which is 128 that I placed here. The scene is set to 128. This sample here at the top, which is set to 150 beats per minute, is going to be played and at 128. Because if you look at the bars, you see it's equal here, right? So it's automatically adjusted. So even though the original sample is set to 150 beats per minute, now is going to play at 128. And this below sample proves it. But it doesn't work all the time with Magix Music Maker. Most of the time, not all the time. And here I imported 128 house loop, and it didn't change. It's still 120. Oh, it's over. The funny thing is, if you import the sample and it's 128, and even if it's 120 here, it plays at 128 beats per minute. So it's not dragging down, it's not slow. I hope I'm not confusing you because this is how Magix Music Maker works. I'm pretty sure other programs work way better, like for example, GarageBand, if you're on Apple. This is LMMS, you can download and use it for free, or you can type free online music maker and use any. I use Magix Music Maker because I used it in the past. I really hope it's clear how it works and how you should do it, but if you have a question, you can write a comment and I will respond.